I missed this Thursday's question time. I thought I'd catch up with it this morning. I really wish I hadn't. It put me in a really bad mood.
Yeah, to go back to Elizabeth's question, vanilla tax avoidance, everybody does it. No, everybody doesn't do it. If you're on minimum wage, if you're an employee, if you're on PAYE, you don't have a choice. And I'm afraid Lord Fink's comments do really show just how completely out of touch people like him are. I have to say, I read the papers with growing incredulity. It was like going back to the Tory days of sleaze in the 1990s. We've got the HSBC scandal, millions squirreled away, helping customers avoid paying their fair share of tax. If it was you or me, we'd be investigated. If we were avoiding tax, we'd be prosecuted. But what happens to the guy that's heading up this bank? He gets a peerage and he gets made a government minister.
Least we forget that HSBC recently was served up a $1.9 billion record fine for laundering drug cartel money. If I had a business and I allowed people to do tax evasion, tax avoidance, and then laundered hundreds of millions of dollars of drug cartels' money, I would expect to be in jail. Everybody who knew what I was doing would expect me to be in jail. Why aren't they in jail?
Well,
the people who run our banks, when there are big mistakes in our banks, they should be held accountable. They can't just run and hide and spend their pensions.
Exactly. That's all the general public want, is that people who make these mistakes get held accountable. But instead, when the credit crunch happened, you didn't hold anybody accountable. Labour, Chris Bryant of the Labour Party, neither do the Tories. All they do is reward them with billions and billions in bonuses and allow them to avoid and evade tax. It's utterly disgusting. All the public want is for people to be held account. And you're not going to do it, Bryant. You're a system-sucking no-mark.
I think what the Swiss bank vaults reveal and what your conversation reveals is the sheer hypocrisy of our political ruling classes.
It's hypocrisy because they're run by special interests. They're run by large corporations and by banksters. So they can literally get away with whatever they like because they bought and paid politicians. Haven't we got enough proof of that already?
Yes. Lord Green headed up the private section of HSBC since 2003. Should he not, therefore, be stripped of his title and face criminal prosecutions for aiding and abetting tax evasion?
Well said, that man. Of course he should face criminal charges. He isn't saying anything. He's obviously going to come out and say he didn't have a clue it was going on. Oh, shock horror when that comes out. If he knew what was going on, he needs to be in jail.
Do you believe, as your party leader professes to believe, that it's our fault what happened in Ukraine, not Putin's fault?
I think there's certainly a question for the EU to answer, and again, I think the EU has actually provoked President Putin, and I do agree with what Nigel says. Oh, look, come on. It's not just Putin that's got expansionist ambitions, is it? The EU has got expansionist ambitions as well. Now, I don't know about you and me, but not in those sort of ways, no. But I don't see Ukraine as being part of Europe. Do you?
It's shocking.
Is it something?
This is shocking.
Part of Europe?
The thing is,
Look at Ed Davey's response here. He looks like someone's nicked his last fucking what's-it. Now bear in mind that Ed Davey is a cabinet minister, so he should know exactly how the Ukraine situation came about. If he doesn't, this is very, very worrying, and it's attitudes like his, slavishly doing what he's told and believing Cameron's hype, that will result in death. Soldiers' death. Not his, people he sends off to fight in a land miles away. He'll be in a bunker somewhere talking to everyone about, oh, how did we get in this situation in the first place? This man hasn't got a clue. Look at his face. He genuinely doesn't appear to know anything about geopolitics. It's obvious he doesn't know that America, with the help of the EU dictators, spent $5 billion on regime change in Ukraine. How can he not know that America and the EU put the neo-Nazis in control of Ukraine? How can he not know that the EU and America sponsored the snipers that were killing the people in the Ukraine and the new government people in the Ukraine. Ed Davey, how do you, as a government minister, not know these things? Do you get your information from the Daily Sport? You're an absolute disgrace, man.
Well, of course, because they've been promised endlessly. Let's come on, join Europe. Let's go. You get access.
You get freedom,
to
you get liberty, you get
trade.
trade.
Yes, exactly.
Freedom, liberty, and trade.
Exactly.
So, Chris Bryant, you get freedom, you get liberty, and you get trade with the EU, do you? Another establishment MP completely out of touch. The last thing the EU promotes is freedom and liberty, you fucking wanker. I'm not sure having unelected bureaucrats ruling over you, telling countries what their every move will be, is freedom and fucking liberty. You have freedom and liberty to do as we say. That's the EU motto. That's the EU freedom for you. Ask Greece about EU freedom. Ask Greece what EU freedom is like. Or ask Jean-Claude Juncker, who said that he will not listen to the free democratic elections which just happened in Greece. He said to hell with what the Greek people want, basically. To say that the EU is about freedom and liberty is the most deluded thing I have ever heard to come out of an MP's mouth. They took over the Ukraine so banks can rape it. I'm so disappointed with the quality of our MPs. They really are clueless on virtually every topic. And when it comes to trade that he talks of, the UK aren't even in the room when these trade deals are discussed. Do you think if Ukraine join the EU, this will change for them and they'll be sat at the table? No, there'll be one EU trade commissioner and that is it. Why do MPs want to slit countries' throats time and time again? Has Ed Davey and Chris Bryant ever had an original thought of their own? I wonder. Or is it the party line every fucking time? It's people like these two Muppet MPs that are systematically destroying our country.
Sarah Wollaston.
Putin's a bully. His hands are all over what happened, the shooting down of that aircraft over Ukraine. Hundreds of people died.
Fuck me, another no-mark MP I've never fucking heard of. Who made Wurzel Gummidge's sister an MP? Who voted for that? But I despair, I really do despair. Sarah Wollaston, Conservative MP for fuck knows where, just how exactly were Putin's hands all over the downing of MH17? If Russia had brought down MH17, then the West would have had a fucking field day. They blamed Russia from day one without a shred of evidence and continued that lie up until today. But the evidence suggests, the actual evidence, you know that thing that people investigate and they find evidence? They don't just repeat what they're told to repeat. They went and found evidence. The evidence suggests that that plane was brought down by a Ukraine fighter jet. Stick that up your arse, you lying whore, Wollaston. Putin has offered loads of evidence to support this fact, but the West have offered nothing because they have nothing. They have propaganda and lies. Was it Hitler or Goebbels who said, if you repeat a lie long enough, then they'll start to believe it? Jesus, where do we get these politicians from? They simply haven't got a clue. It may surprise you, but I just couldn't watch anymore. I'd had enough.